Welcome to number 10, the 10th episode of the Future of Music meetup on Twitch. My name is Tim Shiel. I'm going to start like I do every session by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that I work on, that I live on, that I'm talking to you on right now. It's the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And it's always good to start there, I think, because, well, two reasons. One is it's a reminder that it's never the wrong time to learn more about the traditional owners of the land that you live and work on, but also because we're about to have a conversation about music and about cultural practice and ideas and thoughts, and this is not new, even though it often feels like we're doing brand new stuff with new technologies and new ways of thinking, but really it's all just an extension of practices that have been taking place on these lands for tens of thousands of years, sharing ideas and thoughts and feelings through music. So we are just tonight, wherever it is you might be, the most recent people to be having those conversations. And I pay respect to elders past and present who have been tending this land for many centuries. So with that, a tiny bit about me for anyone who's joined in who hasn't seen one of these before. My name's Tim Shiel. I'm a Triple J and Double J radio broadcaster. I'm a musician. I'm one of the many artists that's involved with Spirit Level, which is a Melbourne-based community of musicians and collaborators. We care a lot about music. We care a lot about each other. And we started this series last year to start having conversations about maybe where music was heading, where it is now. And we've had some fascinating chats over the last 12 months. Like I said, this is number 10. In a minute, I'll introduce the guests for tonight and what we're going to be talking about. But big shouts to some familiar names who are popping in again, who have been here for the last couple. We've been doing them on Twitch for a little bit now, after doing one in real life, which is the maximum amount of real life events that nerdy internet types should be expected to go to. You know what I'm saying? Pandemic or otherwise. I want to thank the City of Melbourne, without whose support this series wouldn't continue. They've been so supportive of the Future of Music meetups right from the start. So we are incredibly grateful for their support through 2021 as well. And yeah, before I start, get active in the chat, introduce yourself, let us know where in the world you are watching from, let us know what you're into, share links to your music. Feel free to get that conversation going because I'm keeping an eye on it as we talk, obviously. And I'd love your comments and questions and contributions to be part of the flow of the conversation that I'm going to be having with my two esteemed guests. That's my cue. You can come off mute now, you guys.
Hello.
Please welcome my guests, Tim Exile and Allison Walker.
Hi.
Hello, everybody.
How are you doing?
You are getting some welcomes from the chat, guys. But I'm so excited to have both of you on for the event tonight. I was just telling you both before we got started, it's a thrill for me because, Allison, I've only gotten to know you recently. I sort of found out about what you've been up to in the last couple of years and gotten to know you a little bit better because, like me, you are based in Melbourne. So it's nice to have a new friend. And then Tim, I feel like I've been following your adventures and exploits as a musician and an instrument creator for 15 years, maybe more. So it's a thrill to have you here as well. It's kind of a nice mix of old and new, and I love that. So, thanks both for jumping on.
Thanks.
Special shout to you, Tim, because how early is it in the morning right now?
Well, it's 8 a.m. I got up at 6 a.m., which was a bit of a challenge because my body clock has somewhat been rotating through the lockdown. Also, I'm doing. I seem to have quite a lot of calls with both East Coast and West Coast US. So often my working days start with the UK working day and end with the beginning of the US working day. So
yeah,
Yeah.
You won't get a lot of sympathy from Australian viewers about international time zones.
Probably not. No, probably not.
Because we're lucky if we get a chat with anybody. But I'm also, incredibly thankful you could get up so early to jump on, because
That's a pleasure.
yeah, we're gonna get into it. We're gonna basically. So anyone who has caught the last few of these events knows that we've had some really heavy chats recently. Our last event was just a few weeks ago, and it was all about music streaming. So it was about Spotify. It was about some of the recent artist campaigns for artists' rights and workers' rights. It was about the UK streaming inquiry with Tom Gray from Broken Record. It was really, amazing, but also exhausting. And our previous chat before that at the end of last year was with a bunch of music nerds just talking about the overall direction and the future of music, like a 2-hour deep dive. So I wanted to get back to just actually making music and the tools we use to make music, which are increasingly diverse and interesting and creative. And you guys are going to demonstrate 2 really different but really exciting new tools for our audience, and for me, just for me, because I just want to see. In fact, this is all just for me. But also for our great spirit level community and the people on the chat. So hello to Lewis, who's tuned in. G'day to Yaksu, who's tuned in from Sheffield in the UK.
Oh, hey Yaksu.
Hey Yaksu. And Lack the Low and Colum and Kezi Fresh are all here from the spirit level fam. So yeah, it's great to see you guys. We might start maybe, Tim, with, you're going to give us a demonstration of Endless. But before you do, I guess for anyone who maybe isn't familiar with your output, your previous music and some of the other work you've done alongside your music, like the Native Instruments products that you've collaborated on, can you give us a rough sketch of your journey so far that has led you to Endless?
I mean, it kind of depends on where you want to peg the start point. But I mean, I usually the shtick starts with me as age 4, got sent home from, well, I didn't get sent home from school. Came home from school with a letter in my hand saying, "Does your son/daughter want to play the violin?" And apparently, it's the first thing that I ever said yes to. So that was the beginning of my musical life. And what I loved about the violin is you put the bow on the string, you move your body, music happens while you're moving your body, and when you stop moving your body, the music stops. So my frame of reference for music has always been as something embodied that happens live, that is communicative. So learned to play the violin, then fell in love with electronic music. Taught myself to DJ, taught myself to produce, did that whole thing. Started getting radio play, got, signed a few 12s to, singles to a couple of labels, and then went on to produce some albums, etc. But in this process, and I went way down that whole wormhole, but I missed that with electronic music. So I kind of in parallel started to mess around with some of these kind of node-based visual programming environments for audio, like Reactor. So Native Instruments Reactor was the big thing that I got into, and that's basically you have these boxes and wires on a screen. But what the boxes and wires do is it's a visual analogy for coding in C++, or that kind of stuff. So I just started to build these instruments, and that eventually just kind of took over my music career, because it allowed me to be performative. And so I built this instrument called the Flow Machine in Reactor, and it's actually I bought this kind of programmable hardware controllers, and I built the software around the hardware controllers. So I actually built the software to the interface, which is, that's how like this kind of stuff is built. They kind of design a hardware interface, and then they put an engine inside it. So that's how I've always thought about building instruments. And then basically, so the guys, the founders of Native Instruments, are both very good friends of mine, and I showed them this instrument I made, and they were just like, there's a whole bunch of really cool stuff in here. How about we take some of these innovations, turn them into products? And so that led to, well, this first product called the Finger, which it's like an effects unit, but each different key on a MIDI keyboard turns on a different effect, and it turns them on in different orders depending on the order you hit the keys in. So it's very mangly. It's quite extreme and quite glitchy. You get these very like drastic transformations. Then we did this plugin called the Mouth, which is more like a voice synth. So it had pitch tracking, performance shifting, vocoding, a whole bunch of stuff in one kind of like package. And there was another one I did with them called Flesh. But these were all kind of plugins. So these were designed to fit into the traditional studio workflow, which is very much about like producing a track. It's very much, spending a potentially infinite amount of time polishing a very small section of music, which is designed to sound very polished and sound the same every time it's played back on, wherever we consume our music. Which is currently usually streaming services, but I've always been interested in music as a process, music as an activity, music as a social activity, because it's only really in the last 150 years that we've really had a concept of music as a thing. When Edison recorded sound, it allowed us to then create these physical artifacts that distributed music, that you could sell to people and distribute music.
Finished versions of songs, like finite finished versions,
songs.
and that you can then sell, you reproduce and sell. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But the history of music is, it's roughly 40,000 years. So we've had 40,000 years of this shared social activity that helps us form and strengthen our cultural bonds, and then we've got 150 years of selling products that are recordings of that. So
I love putting it in that. Yeah. Oh, I love that you're putting it in that context, because especially in a time at the moment where I think a lot of artists feel frustrated and, feel starting to see the boundaries of what has been sort of told to them as what music is, and are starting to think like, no, music should be more than this. I want it to be more than this. I think it's exciting that, your project is kind of working in that context. You've probably got a lot of artists who are like just desperate to try something outside of like finish my song, like work up a beat, finish it in Ableton, upload it to Spotify, blah, blah, blah. Like it's exciting to think of music as being more than that. I just wanted to also just the idea of, we'll have a look at your app in a sec, but that idea of coming full circle, you've started off feeling a little restricted maybe by drum machines and hardware and stuff, and you've wanted to get back to that improvisation, that physical feeling, and you've built the Flow machine. I'm trying to remember, the Flow machine was essentially like a bundle of MIDI controllers, yeah? Like was that with the Behringer motorized faders?
Yeah.
Because I think I actually bought one of those Behringer mixers with motorized faders after seeing the Flow machine and going like, oh, you can get one of those? And But as you say, it's like you were desperately just trying to find a thing that you could just get your hands in so that you can actually mangle and improvise music the way you used to when you were a budding violinist. Can you still play violin, Tim?
No. I mean, I probably could have a stab at Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, but not really.
So when does the process of developing Endless start? Do you have a background in coding and development enough to get started, or how did that happen?
Yeah. Well, to build the Flow machine involved going sort of relatively close to the metal. This is what developers say when you get really into the details of how things work. So I ended up having to develop quite a lot of my own digital signal processing algorithms, time stretching algorithms. I had to implement a lot of stuff that just wasn't implemented in Reactor, and I learned a ton about how computers work, how processors work, just general theories and best practices about how to build, how to build architecture, how to build systems, generally how these things work, which I think was. So Endless, just to fast forward to Endless. So Endless is kind of the culmination of all of this stuff. It's a platform really for live collaborative music making and listening. Although not, I mean, the listening side of it isn't so much in there at the moment. That's what we're building out in the next year or so. But currently we're on iOS. I'll get up the app later and show how it all syncs up. But I don't. If any of your listeners have been on Clubhouse before, this new kind of phenomenon where privileged people
we got to tick Clubhouse off the bingo. We made a actually I should go find it. I actually did make, after last time's our last Twitch stream, I made like a future of music Twitch stream bingo chart, and you've just ticked off Clubhouse. I'm going to go find that and tick it off while you keep talking. Thank you for doing
that. I mean, what's really interesting about Clubhouse is that it's live and you have these rooms, and Endless works very much like that. But it's like that, but for live jamming with, I mean, it sort of definitely bends towards electronic music, but you can record anything in. So there are quite a few sort of vocal jams, acoustic jams, found sound jams, funk, jazz jams on there. So, but I mean, the idea really is to turn music into to reframe music as an activity we do together rather than a product we consume alone. That's the broad vision.
Well, you're going to give us a demonstration of it. Like you've just sort of said, there's a app version that works for iOS, and then you've also more recently launched a native like desktop version that can live inside DAWs and is more like a step towards a fully fledged music making environment. But I've just and I think maybe you're going to give us a demo of the desktop Endless Studio. But I wanted to I dropped in the chat for anyone who just wants to just dive headfirst in like right now. There's a link in there that if you follow it and you jump through the hoops, you may end up inside Spirit Level's jam that I think I set up at some point a couple of weeks ago. I think I saw you in there jamming, Tim, before, and I've had Scott, I think, also jumped in recently, one of our Spirit Level peeps. But it's been pretty quiet in there. But for anyone who wants to just like throw caution to the wind and dive in, just click that button and see where you end up.
Yeah.
But
maybe I'll try and lay something down.
Ooh. That could be cool. Sinja303 is also saying that they're going to jump in there. But do you feel like, Tim, maybe sharing your screen and kind of running us through some of the nuts and bolts of what Endless is? I'm sure we've got a few mad music making people who are just keen to get into the nuts and bolts. Do you feel like doing that?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Let me, so fingers crossed. This is actually my first time sharing directly from Zoom. So, can you hear that? Okay, so I'm assuming that you can see and hear what I'm doing. So this is Endless Studio. So this is the desktop version. It's Mac OS only at the moment. We've got Windows coming later this year. It's a more fully fledged version of what you have on the iOS app. So is my camera still visible?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So that's the mobile app there.
Oh, it's so cute.
Yeah, it is. So the mobile app is designed to be kind of cute and very, very playable. But it's got basically exactly the same functionality as what you can see on the desktop app now. So maybe the best thing to do is I'll build a beat up from scratch. So I've just got some basic sounds here. I'm actually going to pick some better ones. We've got some I like these grime ones. So I'm tapping out beats on my keyboard here. You can also plug in a MIDI keyboard and get a much kind of broader mapping control, map it to all sorts of interfaces. But I'm just playing it from my computer keyboard here. So I just played that loop. I played that beat in, and then I just grabbed it retrospectively. So it's got this retrospective. Now it's started playing on my phone. Let me just actually leave the jam on my phone right now. So I've got that kind of simple bass drum pattern in there, and what I'm going to do is now select an effect. Which effect I'm going to use a delay effect. So I've just kind of messed around with that loop and threw some effects, and then I've re-looped that. And now what I'm going to do is so I've done that again by kind of reversing some little bits. And actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to town on this. I'm going to go. I'm going to use loads of effects to just really kind of destroy this. So I've totally destroyed that drum, but up here, I've got the history of everything I've done, so I can track back in time, right back to that first loop. Or actually, that's one I did before. And actually, I can track right the way back to when we were sound checking this call earlier. And I can also go back to 14 days ago when Tim Shiel started this jam. And this is some of the stuff that he was messing around with.
Okay. All right. No. I've got to interrupt you there. That's definitely my daughter's. That was.
Okay.
I may have let my 7-year-old in charge of the app at some point. So that was one of her incredible
Okay.
I got a reputation to maintain here.
We could maybe the thing is, because we're in the shared jam room together. So Tim, the link that Tim shared in the chat. You can dive into this jam right now. You could go to the App Store. If you go to the App Store and search for Endless with 3 S's, you'll find the app, and then you can follow this link that Tim's dropped in the chat. You can join in. You can join this room, and you'll also be able to see the history of what's been going on in this room. So maybe I'll pry a little further into your daughter's.
There were some gems. There were some honest gems there.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so I'm going to dive deeper in. So we've got 2nd of March. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to now take something that Tim did 14 days ago, and I'm going to remix this. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to slather some reverb on it. Actually, maybe I'm not. It's a bit splashy, so I'm going to low pass it first. And now I'm going to put some reverb through it. So what I've done there is I've just gone back in time into the history of this jam room and dredged something up from the past and remixed that. But then I've also got everything that I was doing there. So it's like, this allows you to jam. Oh, we've got someone else. Who we got? Frank Bones. Okay, Frank Bones is in the room.
Frank enters the chat.
Frank enters the chat. So I can actually tell you what, I'll just solo the Frank Bones thing. It sounds like I'll put some delay on it. Oh. Maybe just let this run in the background. But anyway, I don't want to hog the mic because I'm also we've got Allison here as well. So
I'm having such a good time witnessing this. To be honest, this is great.
To make this completely clear, we've got both Tim and Frank Bones both in the same session at the moment, and every now and then Frank, who is also in the chat, he's watching at the moment. You know, every now and then he's adding something, and when he does, it's updating live in your app too, Tim. And by the way, my iPad here that has it open, whenever somebody changes something, mine just starts playing with the new riff that someone else has created. So it's like, it's in a way really simple, but kind of revolutionary, because I can't think, Tim, of another app that's quite done this kind of thing in this way, this style of collaborative kind of loop-based music making.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I call this conversational collaboration rather than consensus collaboration. So, you know, there are collaborative tools out there like Soundtrap, Splice has got this kind of versioning thing, but they're kind of like Google Docs. So it's like a bunch of people can go into a single truth and edit that single truth. And so someone can say something or play something, and then someone can come in and then just delete that. And you know, it doesn't lend itself for, it's not freely collaborative. And so the way Endless works is designed to be conversational. So someone can come with an idea, and almost like that, if you've ever been involved with sort of improv or comedy, there's this idea of, you say yes and. So if someone does something, you don't like go and sort of deny it and shut it down. You go like, yes and this. And so it's a whole, you know, series of yes ands. Okay, yeah, you kind of like shredded my beautiful, delicate guitar melody through a saturator, and now I'm going to shred that through some kind of like go-to loop beat chopper effect or something. So it does, because it keeps a history of everything, so you never destroy anything. You can always track back in time, so it makes you feel really free to just experiment and try stuff out. So you know, what we notice is that members of the Endless community can very quickly get to really good stuff because they're not afraid of trying things, because they know that if it doesn't work, they can just go back.
I think it's really phenomenal, like how much you can play in time with this as well. Like often when I feel like I'm creating stuff, it's like you'll go through this whole process of going like, oh, I start here and then I end up here or something like that, and then someone else witnessing that whole process will, like, I've noticed at points will say, oh, I really liked this thing that you were doing, this bit here, which is like not something that you would have picked up on as well. So and then they'll want to laser in and figure out like this particular thing that they found special about it that you would have glossed over completely. And this feels like it really like allows people, like it allows you to just make a whole bunch of different things, make a whole bunch of different changes, and then someone can go through all the different iterations and changes and say, I really like this one, and then we're gonna go like follow the thread from like here. That's so brilliant.
Cool. Yeah. No, it's
sorry for the
it
rant.
is really yeah, no, it is really exciting, because I think it also opens another thing I've noticed is that because you get multiple people in a jam, and they've all got different perspectives, and they've all got slightly different tastes, and they all choose and highlight various, you know, different things. And we've just experimented with some very early social features now, but we've got this feed where people can post riffs to, but the kind of things that people select, that like curatorial mindset, becomes like a whole new the whole new possibilities for kind of expression just through what you choose to highlight rather than what you choose to make. Because I think, you know, when you're creating stuff in a DAW, it's not just this kind of like constant outflow of ideas and material. It's very much a dialogue, and you're always you kind of have a little theory about something. I think particularly with TidalCycles, what you use, Allison, it's you have an idea of how of something that you think might sound good, and then you kind of put that in as code and then run it, and then it will sound, to a greater or lesser degree what you thought it would sound like, but it will always lead you on to the next thing and the next idea. It's always a dialogue, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like what I'm most impressed with is like being able to play with the dialogue, like in like another like dimension of time, instead of just like usually these things are so linear, that being able to like dive back into the history of things is like so powerful. Like I don't know, I don't have much more to say on it than that, other than I think it's cool.
We should mention that a bit later, Allison is going to give us a demonstration of what Tim just hinted to, a TidalCycles, which is a free open source kind of live music coding environment, which I'm sure Allison will be able to explain a lot better than I can, but a very, very different and also really exciting tool. So we're going to get into that in a sec. But while we are in Endless with 3 S's, do you have to say Endless like 50% longer than Endless?
I think maybe in the early days I did, but it's fallen away. It's just Endless. Endless with 3 S's rather
endless
than
with
endless.
3. You must be tired of saying that. It's Endless with 3 S's.
Endless with 3 S's, yeah. I mean, maybe that maybe that'll just become our tagline.
Yes, yeah, sounds
in
good.
the future. Endless like with 3 S's.
If anyone has any questions while we're talking specifically about Endless, about this the desktop app Endless Studio, or about the iOS app, any questions at all for Tim, feel free to just jump in the Twitch chat. I'm keeping an eye on it. I've actually turned the chat room overlay off on the stream, which I hope is cool with those who are here, just because it was covering up Allison's face, and that seemed very rude. But yeah, if anyone has anything to add or any questions you want to throw in, I'm keeping an eye on the chat. Yaksu says, I've got to run to work now. I hope to catch up on this later. Big up, Allison. Love your algorithms.
Oh, thank you.
And then Yaksu came straight back and said, this conversation's too great to leave. So sorry if you're going to be late for your thing, Yaksu. It can wait. Forget about work. Doesn't matter.
Just hang out with us.
Just
Don't worry about it.
No worries. You will be able to catch up on all of this conversation later, by the way. It stays up on Twitch for 7 days, and then at some point I upload it to YouTube, although sometimes I'm really lazy with that. That's my bad. So, Tim, I wanted to ask, like, often tools like this, because the workflow I think is incredibly creative and innovative, and it is a style of collaboration that I've never seen. So even just for me playing with it, it's been such a joy to jump in random jams with other people who might be live in the jam at the same time. And especially, we won't go down this train of thought too long because I'm sure it's been covered, but during the pandemic, I can only imagine it's been a useful tool for a lot of people to feel like, to recreate that feeling of being in a room and jamming with somebody in a very real way. But tools like this, sometimes they live and die a bit by the selection of the sounds themselves. So I was wondering if you could demonstrate some of the sounds, the drum sounds and the different patches and things, and talk a bit about how these were developed. Because you have this long history of creating tasty sounds through your various records and stuff. But, it's not all your work, I'm assuming. Talk a little bit about where all these sounds come from and how they were chosen.
Wow. 99% of the sounds in Endless are actually created by our community. So we have a kind of back-end sound design tool, which we only share kind of with certain people who really want to design sounds. But at some point, this is going to actually be included as part of the desktop app. So you'll be able to actually assemble one of these sound packs yourself. But we've got this with this tool that we've shared with some of our community. And so yeah, all these sounds, I mean, apart from, so these studio sounds we commissioned for the launch of Endless Studio. I just went to some sort of like professional sound designers, and they did a great job. There's some really juicy sounds here. Actually, that's our lo-fi hip hop. But I mean, I love these like trap sounds. Just really, you know, juicy, chunky sounds. But I mean, I'd really recommend like go and grab the app and go and grab the desktop app. We've got a week's free trial now on the desktop app. The mobile app is free, but you can pay for for sound pack upgrades, etc. And just give them a whirl. I mean, there's so much in there. So we've got these various different drum sounds. I'll not use. So Genki, for example, this is a new pack by Uncle Homunculus. He's one of our most active members and a very good friend to the whole project. So, you know, this is. He tends to go for. I get these kind of like nice retro sort of vocal textures, but then we've got say what's this? To be honest, I haven't even checked this pack out yet. So. So I guess these are kind of like so I know so Uncle Homunculus is a good friend of mine. He's called Paul, and we're both actually really big fans of this group called Visible Cloaks, who make this most beautiful it's like a futurist remix, a futurist take on kind of 80s Japanese sort of ambient stuff, and I'm listening to the sounds he's put in here. I can hear the references just in the sounds.
It is exciting though to think that that the plans, one of the many plans for your app is to essentially have a place where different users of the app can be trading. You can be uploading banks of samples for other people to use, and that's you can see the collaborative nature of the whole project extends through what will be further iterations of it. That almost leads me to like a curlier question for you, Tim, which is around rights and copyright and stuff like that, which is a curly area which is well documented, that copyright is not sufficiently capable of handling the complexity of collaboration in music these days. But have you accounted for or thought about a situation where you've got a group of people that jam on something together in Endless, and then one of them wants to put it out, and essentially the jam that they've created might have all these fractions of bits of remixes of other people's quote unquote other people's work, depending on how everybody interprets that. Have you thought too much about that, or the ramifications of that, or how to document that? Or
yeah, so I mean, the way the license works on Endless is that everybody owns the stuff that they make, or retains the copyright in whatever they do on Endless, but they give Endless, like they give us the platform and everyone on the platform, a license to do whatever anyone wants with it on the platform. So it's it's like a licensing sandbox,
right?
And within that, we track all the authorship. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see here, but we've got there are four. No, hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 5 authors. So if I unmute all the layers in here, and they're not actually all designed to go together. So it's, I mean, it sounds pretty kind of chaotic with all these layers together. That's like 5 different authors. So let's say, we'll tell you what, I'll unmute I'll unmute everything, and I'll create a new riff. So let's say we like this riff. We've got 5 authors, but you can see who created each layer. We've got, I mean, there are some ways right now that you can kind of bypass that. So if I could take, say, banana poops layer, and I could say put it through the low pass filter. You know what I want to do now? I want to. I'm sorry, I just have to do this.
Yes. Yes.
I'm such a like dubby. This is the thing with endless. It does kind of suck you in, which is sort of what it's supposed to do, I guess. Anyway, the point I was trying to illustrate before I got totally distracted was that, so currently, you know, that loop that Banana Loop made, because I put it through some effects, I kind of made it my own, but we're working on this algorithm that will then like figure out kind of splits within layers. So if someone affected something, then they only get a little cut of that, if you see what I mean. But anyway, yeah, we track the authorship all the way through. And you know, when I mean, there's probably, I imagine, another thing on your future of music bingo is NFTs.
Yay! Ding 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 ding.
Ding,
Yes,
ding,
the
ding,
blockchain.
ding.
Let's talk
The
about
blockchain.
it. I don't know anything about the blockchain.
Well, I mean, who does? Apart from some very very clever people. But you know, one of the things we're looking at, I think I mentioned probably just before we went live, that I think, yeah, you know, one of my goals is to give people a means, if they get really good at doing stuff on Endless, to earn a living, you know. And so, you know, we're looking at how people can do that. Maybe it's they can author sound packs and sell them. But now this whole new NFT thing has come in. I mean, it's not, you have to separate the concept, the kind of legalities from the technology, from the business models. So kind of 3 things often get lumped together, and obviously the environmental impact. And all, I mean, it's such a divisive topic, but I think what's really exciting is that people are feeling like it is worth, like the stuff, the like digital things that you make are actually worth something intrinsically. And I think that is a really important thing for culture, because nowadays, if you're a, you know, people talk about like content creators, you know, musicians are now increasingly being referred to as content creators. And it's this kind of like, it's a real sort of, it's like you know, a gig economy for creators, where you show up every week and you create your content, and hopefully people enjoy your content. If you stop creating content, then you just kind of fall off the radar, and which doesn't allow people it makes it almost impossible. You know, artists who are like striving to do that thing that's like really impactful, who's like will devote an entire life to doing one thing that is just like that thing. You know, the economics around that have made that less and less possible now. And I think what is really exciting about the idea that the digital things we create are actually intrinsically worth something is really exciting for creators. But anyway, sorry, I'm massively hogging the mic on my monologue, so I'll stand down.
I guess yeah, for anyone who wants to check Endless out, you know, definitely starting with the app on iOS is a good place to start if you've got an iPhone or an iPad. The experience on iPad's pretty good. So yeah, highly recommend going and checking it out for free, or get the free trial of the desktop app, and you know, a week later you might be super into it and find that you want to have it in your life. But yeah, Tim, this is great. If you want to stick around, I think we might get Allison to give us a look at TidalCycles. But
yeah, totally. Yeah. I can't wait. I'm really excited to
yeah,
learn about it.
Thanks so much for showing us the app and giving us a bit of background on it. And it's just nice to know that even in a time where it feels like you know, every idea is being explored and tried, and there's still so many new ways of doing things. And that was probably one of the key things that I thought when I saw this app and started playing with it, was like, never done anything like this before. And it's also, you know, a thing that probably hasn't really been possible before until someone has made the app that stitches all these things together. So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing more with it.
Wish I had a
Cool,
Mac so that I could try it out.
Oh yeah, what about Android PC timeline?
PC is coming. I think we're targeting like Q3. The Android at some point. I mean, it's very complicated.
Do you mean Q3, like the third quarter of the year by Q3?
Yes, third quarter of the year. So
cool.
like sort of late summer. I think we should be launching it. And Android is it's very challenging. There are lots of different devices. The operating system itself just isn't really set up for real-time audio, and also that, I mean, there are lots more people on Android, but the sort of retention rates and people don't stick around. They tend not to spend money on things and so on. So it's all. But I mean, we'll definitely get to Android, but we need to kind of like get a bit further with some other stuff before we move to Android as well.
I'm just going to drop a link to the Endless Discord as well in our chat for anyone who's.
Oh yes, no, do pop into the Discord.
Yep, if anyone who wants to. There's a really nice community building there. It's really active. There's hundreds of people in there, you know, sharing ideas, not just talking about the app, but other things as well. And it's a good, it's a really nice community in there for anyone who wants to check that out. So just pop that in the chat. So Allison, let's talk a bit about you. Can you give us like the origin story of Allison Walker, a musician, composer? When did you start with music? As a kid?
Yeah, as a kid, I think like Tim, I did like I don't know if you did classical violin and stuff like that. That's such a, like, you know, acoustic instruments have so much more to them going on, but I just kind of assumed that that's where you got your training and stuff like that. I did classical piano for like 16 years or something, like a really long time. And I kind of like completely poo-pooed the idea of like any kind of modern music. Like I was like violently like anti anything electronic for like the longest time. And then I like just started mucking around, and I think like a lot of people like GarageBand and stuff like that. Like I once had like a Mac operating system and stuff like that, but I don't know, I like weird EXEs, I guess, so I'm on Windows now. Yeah, and then I kind of like got out of high school, stopped playing piano quite as strenuously as I used to, and kind of took several years of literally doing nothing with myself to like make and learn like DAWs and do all that kind of thing, and I guess that's like kind of taken me all around the shop. I've done like a bunch of different things with music, mostly related to games. Like that's my main job now, is like a game designer and doing that kind of stuff. And I guess like TidalCycles was shown to me on a whim by someone who I'm friends with, who asked like just into the void on Facebook of like, hey, does anyone know how to live code? And I thought, gee, what's that? That sounds really interesting. And I did a bit of research, and I like came across all the various different languages and stuff like that. And I saw TidalCycles as just like the first one that popped up of that I could see that I could feasibly do. And I posted like, I don't, but I can learn. Where like, when do you need someone for it? And they were like, I need someone in like 2 weeks. So I learned the language and like played a show like 2 weeks after learning it. It was like
Deadlines are good.
Yeah, it definitely helped me like get my head around it like pretty quickly. It definitely wasn't my proudest show, but it was very, very fun, and it gave me a real taste for like actually kind of like pushing myself to understand electronic music like properly, as like a bit more than just like a thing that I fucked around with and would like hope to, I don't know, get some kind of like vague following or something like that. It was just sort of like a background kind of thing for a while. And like, you know, I thought I was going to do like studio engineering or like, you know, live engineering as like my main kind of job for like a long time. Yeah, it kind of gave me the same sensation of like, Tim, you were talking about like how violin and like the body movement is something that you find really intrinsic to the way that you understand music and stuff like that. And I really related to that, but like kind of in a different way with piano playing, and like the piano is like this fucking monstrous beast of engineering. Like it's it's seriously incomprehensible how these things work unless you like study for so many years of all of the different like little parts. And there's like, and some of them have like all this kind of felt and like that on them in weird places that you never would have expected to dampen the mechanical sound, and like all the actions are different, and like they're absurdly complicated, and like I just, you, when you're playing it, you just have no idea how it works like at all. And I think um I really appreciate electronic music and TidalCycles in particular in the same way, where it's like I really like the sounds that I can get out of this thing, and I really like working with it. But like the whole process to me is like magic, and and like that's something that I really value about it, is that I don't understand how it works.
Mm.
And I almost don't want to.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
I mean, that sounds like antithetical to like what a lot of kind of musicians and stuff strive for, of like really wanting to understand these things. But like um, I I want to understand how I can use it, but I don't necessarily want to worry myself with how it's made or something. So I'm like kind of the end user or whatever. But I really, really value that about a lot of TidalCycles and this kind of stuff, because it feels so much more like magic to me than like an Ableton DAW or something like that, where you actually have to understand how it works to get anything out of it. Like you have to dive into the guts out of it and like figure out all the ways that you can engage with it and stuff like this. But Tidal is just sort of like you type the words and then it works. Like it's really like it's really special in that way, I guess.
Well,
Yeah.
let's see it. I want to see it. I want to see.
All right.
We've done this before. You came on my Triple J show a couple of years back very kindly, and did some live coding on air, which was great. But our listeners couldn't actually see the code while you were doing it. There was a bit of a, now I'm typing, and now I'm typing.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah,
we'll actually
totally.
be able to see exactly what you're doing. But I think you do these workshops kind of semi regularly in Melbourne. And it's shown a lot of people how to use TidalCycles. So
Yeah, we've been running them like once a year pretty consistently.
Yeah,
Um,
excellent.
this last one that we did was over Zoom. Weirdly enough, electronic teaching, it doesn't work over Zoom for me. At least, like I need to be in the physical space where I can see someone like having trouble with the thing to be like, okay, how can I
Yeah.
help, rather than like trying to pay attention to like 15 different blocks of screens of people's faces, and then like sometimes people have their camera off or something, so I can't see if someone looks distressed. I just have to ask people like, hey, are you okay?
Well, Tim and I will let you know if we start to feel distressed in some ways.
All right.
You could almost make that your goal. See if you can make us
True.
distressed.
I reckon I could
go.
make you distressed. I reckon I could do it. Cool. Welcome to TidalCycles. This is like one of the screens. I might give like a bit of a rundown of just how things work, like before we hop into, I don't know, some kind of performance, right? There's like two components to it. There's Tim, I think I'm not sure if you mentioned this on stream or if we were talking about it earlier, but like Super Collider is like the thing that kind of runs it all. You can see I was like pushing it a bit too hard. And this is where all the sounds are produced and stuff like that. So this little IDE Atom sends the signal and all the code and stuff like that to Super Collider, and then it handles all the sound stuff, and that's where all the magic occurs. There's like a bunch of code here that I've written out before that I'll show you later and stuff like that, but for now we can just write the name of a channel, and then this little block to put a bunch of different sounds within. I'll make it a bit cleaner. And then I'm just going to write maybe this one, and, oh, you know, I always like to slow it down by some amount, 8, I guess. And then that should trigger a sound in a moment, hopefully. This might be a bit quiet. There it is. Can you all hear that properly?
Yeah.
Bit louder?
Yeah, it's coming through.
All right, great. Cool. So this is just like a really simple block. I'm triggering a sample here, which is this like note sample. I've slowed down the cycles by 8 so that when I play this, I'm not just experiencing this kind of constant sound, which is nice, but it's not necessarily what I want. I can choose different samples within the folder. So this thing called note is, sorry, I shouldn't just point at my screen with my fingers. You can't see me doing that. Use my mouse. This part here, note, is like a folder, and then we can change which sample we're hearing in the folder by triggering like a different number. So 1 is the second one in the folder, 0 is the first one. There it goes, it's a different sound. And then another one again. And then I can choose several of them. And then it'll just randomly pick between all of them. And I just want to check that I'm getting all the right ones, because there's one in here that I don't like, and it's this one. And now it's gone. I can also put this one over here. I can put this over here and it still works. I can stack a bunch of sounds on top of each other, and I can move this to over here so that it's a bit cleaner and it affects all of them. Now there's a bunch of them, and you can kind of build up this sort of this nice sort of thing. Maybe I want this one to be further out. Maybe I want one in between there. So these things in here are just rests. This is happening at the second half of the cycle. This was happening at the last quarter of the cycle. Now this is all well and nice and sounds kind of okay, but I can also like apply like a bunch of different effects to all of these things. So perhaps I could say by pushing everything like to the side a bit and then superimposing some other sounds onto it, I can say I wanted to yeah, lower the speed by half, and then I also don't want that to be too loud, so then I can lower the gain a little bit on it. And then I can also like reverse samples and do this kind of stuff. And then it kind of becomes this sort of real like nice wash, and so many nice little effects and things that you can build up just from like a single sample and like a couple of other things. And then maybe rarely I want something to be superimposed. Actually, you know what, I'll divide 2.5. And then once again, we can employ this speed, but I can go up by a factor of 1 instead of down. Chuck the gain one on there as well. And that's a nice kind of wash, I guess. I'm just going to chuck this on another channel, because now I can show you some other things that I've made before, sort of as a pre-prepared sort of thing. You can make like I don't know, you could make songs entirely by improvising, sort of like, well, this isn't an improvisation. I know how to like write out this block of code to make it sound right. So you could do that. You could have like things memorized. You could completely improvise, or you can have these like pre-prepared scripts and stuff that I have that I find easier to just sort of perform on the fly. And let's perhaps see how one of those might sound. And this might get loud in case you've got your volumes up, so watch out. All right, that's probably enough from me.
Big, yeah, you're getting a lot of props from the chat.
Oh, thank you.
I love it. I love it, Allison. Thank you
Yeah,
for
it's
that
amazing.
performance. Yeah.
Thanks.
And it's just like, yeah. Oh, I was gonna say, Tim. You know, I've only watched Loaf Coding a few times, but there's just like a very unique pleasure in, especially if you have dabbled a bit in code. There's like a really fun pleasure in kind of watching it as a performance, in the same way that you might watch a guitarist play or something. You kind of like, when the fingers move up the guitar, you're like, oh, he's going to do that or she's going to do that. It's just the same as when you move to a bit of code that's commented out and it's like, oh, I wonder what that's going to do. Oh, there, she's done it. Oh, look what she's done. It's just, yeah, it's a really fun thing, like a spectator sport. It's very, very cool.
Totally. I'm glad that you find enjoyment in that. I sometimes feel like, I should write everything out. And sometimes I do, but it's like, I find it more stressful and I get like a better performance if I just got it written out and I can like comment in things.
Yeah. It's so cool that you can build up a sort of a library of ideas, and you just comment them all out, and then comment them back in. It's such a it's weirdly natural.
It is,
because we're so used to kind of organizing our thoughts in text form, and because the language of Tidal is it's relatively, as some, I've never used Tidal. I know a bunch of people who have, and I've seen Tidal code, script, whatever on screens before, but I don't really know the sort of grammar of it and what it means. But still, you can see like words like rarely and slow and course and accelerate. It's just like, okay, there's a semantic connection there to what you're doing. So it's amazing.
Totally. I'm glad that you can like pick it apart in that way, because like I think something that I really value about this is that like all of the like words for everything are really, really like clear, aside from like some of the like, I don't know, like the dollar signs and the hashtags and stuff like that, which like, I don't know, it doesn't really matter too much for like the layperson who doesn't like, I don't know, who's never like coded in their life or something. I mean, it's like it's great that like I can like take this to a show and then like, and people can look at the speed and go like, oh, she's like lowering the speed, or like she's raising the speed. Whoa. And like it also, I feel like it gives them like a real like appreciation for maybe like some of the behind the scenes of like a lot of electronic work. I think this is something that comes up a lot when I'm like coding in a bar or like some kind of event or something, is that like people feel like there's more of a sort of like, they feel like they can understand more of what's going on in this than they can with like someone rocks up with like a bunch of like pots and faders and wires everywhere, and like they got their modular synth, or like they've got like their laptop and you can't see the screen on it, so you don't know what they're doing, like which like I find really fascinating. But like I think it's really cool to be able to like bring this to people and go like, hey, this is like here's all the music.
So
you mentioned the dollar signs and the hash signs. That was going to be my first question, because it feels like that's understanding those is the key to understanding TidalCycles. That's
totally. Totally. That's like the entire, I don't know, it's the only mystery I think really to it all, is like knowing where to put brackets and do dollar signs and hashtags. As I can't tell you exactly what they do, because like I don't know, it's magic to me. But like essentially the dollar signs are like a way to like thread the signal like through like a certain chain. So you can have like, we've got this stack here of sounds. I use everything in stacks basically. We've got this stack here, and then it's threading these samples through this dollar sign, and then sending it to, okay, now we're going to slow down the cycles by this amount, and then okay, so then now we're also going to make like a duplicate of everything and shift it like by half a cycle to the right and apply these effects to it, and then we're going to take that signal and then move it over here and do another thing. and take this signal and do another thing up here, and then finally like take that signal and like chuck it through the channel.
Right.
Then,
So it kind of works in back. So the signal starts at 15, and it sort of works its way up in processing order.
Yeah, totally. The signal actually starts here, like at this entire block. So this is like a whole thing, and then it gets passed through here. So all of these things, all these hashtags are applied to all of these. So n is the number within like the folder, for example. Gain is it's the gain, it's the volume. And then the beginning and ending is like, I want to change the sample and stuff like that. These are like the effects, I guess, and then these are like ways to fuck around with like the pattern and all that kind of thing. And you can do like a lot of wild stuff within patterns as well. I just don't really engage in it too much. Like, you know, there's like these symbols here which like on the first cycle it'll do this, and then on the second cycle it'll do a different thing. It'll do this.
So
anyway,
if somebody was watching and was like, I would love to get this set up on my computer and start mucking around, like it might look really intimidating to some people, but you know, I don't think it has to necessarily be that intimidating. What I imagine the TidalCycles website maybe steps you through it, but just from your experience, like how hard is it to get this set up if you wanted to have a go at it like tonight, like after this conversation?
If you're confident in like installing things and like going through a bit of an adventure through cyberspace, downloading and installing a bunch of different things, you could feasibly get it up and running like within like the next like couple of hours or something, and then like start mucking around. It's pretty easy in some ways. Sometimes it can be, sometimes you can hit like a problem and it can be a bit hard, but like there's a lot of like documentation online just to have a Google around.
So you'd need, so Super Collider is essentially running like the sound engine, and Atom, because Atom's just a text editor, isn't it? Like it can be a web editor or whatever you want it to be.
It's got like a bunch of these like themes and packages and stuff like that, and TidalCycles is like a package that runs in Atom. Then you also need to get Haskell and Git, and then download things through the terminal and feel like a hacker for a little bit. It's it's aesthetically it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun to have like a terminal, like you're downloading some weird program or something, and then like you got a terminal open and it's just like spewing like lines out at you. Like that's pretty satisfying.
It's just great to see new ways of making. It's just another way of making music, but it's a like any way of making music, it probably nudges you into certain habits or certain ways of doing, and you know, like it's just fun to see.
Totally.
You know, like if you're working, just pulling an example, like if you're crafting a piece of music in Ableton Session View, that's gonna point you in a certain kind of direction. If you're using Endless Studio, for example, that's going to point you in a certain kind of direction. You're kind of going to get nudged a little bit in a certain kind of workflow, and then this is like something entirely different. It's going to kind of point you in a certain direction. Like it kind of reminds me a bit of Trackers a little bit, like in that you're going to kind of end up with this relentless, repetitive kind of sound that you're tweaking just little bits at a time, but you know, that's still really exciting to see. And as a live performance thing, I think really, really cool. I would totally come and see you do a TidalCycles show, Allison. When's your next gig?
Well, you should come along to out the front of Signal for, is it Melbourne Music Week? I don't remember. Last time it was Melbourne Music Week. It might not be this time. Don't quote me on that. We're doing one out the front of Signal, which is like on Flinders Walk, where we've organized to get all the people who learned how to do this like live coding stuff over Zoom this year, and they're all going to perform for everyone.
Nice.
And I might do a little bit of a performance at the end or at the start or something. We got to figure it out.
Love it. Well, that was so rad. I'm going to post the links in the chat again for anyone who might have missed it. The link to Endless, the Endless website, from there you'll find out everything you need to know to get the iOS apps or the desktop version as well. and also TidalCycles, which I did just post in the chat before, but I'll post it again. Just both really interesting tools, particularly if you're just looking to break out of a workflow that you feel stuck in. I know that particularly for electronic musicians, but all musicians, I think you end up in certain workflows and certain habitual situations of making music. And I think it's really important and inspiring sometimes just to kind of force yourself out of your comfort zone and into new territory. And both of these things in really different ways are things that you can sink your teeth into, and just try something different. I love that.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's in the chat and has enjoyed tonight, and maybe isn't already part of the Spirit level family, I'd love to encourage you to chuck a follow on this channel, because we'll have another one of these events in a few weeks' time. We do them every month or so. It's probably a little bit more regular at the moment, which is kind of cool. So if you follow us in the chat, you'll get notified, obviously, when we go live. But you can also join Spirit Level's Discord, which I'll chuck in the chat as well, where you're all welcome and where we hang out, where Allison hangs out a little bit. And we've got just a nice crew in there talking about different stuff and about music. So please feel free to join us there. And yeah, Tim and Allison, that was just so rad just to see a couple of new options. It's great.
Amazing.
Yeah, and Tim, I got to say, like, congratulations! Like, building an app and launching it and setting up a whole community, like, it is no easy task. Like, so, congratulations on all of your hard work there. It's a pretty ambitious project, but I think it's going to find a lot of enthusiasm. It already has. So, yeah, really exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and I give it all up. I give it all up to my team. I mean, they're amazing, and the community.
Yeah,
it's. I feel my job more and more is more to just like keep my eyes on the horizon and make sure everyone's pointing in the right direction, and also go out there, hustle, get funding, because it's not there's a lot of effort, there's a lot of time and effort, and people need to be you need to pay people for stuff, so. Yeah, that's more and more my job these days. But I mean, it's so worth it. Seeing people come together. I mean, there's bands that have met on Endless, formed on Endless, and have gone to release records. And it's amazing seeing people's musicality go from strength to strength on the platform, because it's so easy for them to do, and they can do it with anyone, anywhere in the world at any time if they're on the platform at the same time. So yeah.
And you just ran a competition where you had a bunch of people in the community submit music, and the winners are going to be released through like an Endless record label. Is that kind of the vibe?
Yeah. So we've got this record label called Endless Tracks. Turns out running a record label there's quite a lot of effort. So we released one album last year, and we've got a whole bunch of albums written by the Endless community that we want to release. But the next thing we're releasing, we're actually releasing technically on Friday. It's a series of 5 remixes of stems from a live jam that we streamed 3 weeks ago on Friday. On this coming Friday. And so it's this initiative called Unfolding. So every month we're going to invite a guest curator to select a bunch of people to jam together, and then they'll jam together, we'll stream the jam live, and at the end of the jam we'll just drop the stems to the community, so they can then go grab those stems, remix them, turn them into tracks, and submit them for a remix competition, and then we'll pick, our plan is to pick the 4 most voted for remixes. There are 5 this time because we actually had 4. We had 1 first place and 4 tied in second place, so we decided to go with 5. But yeah, that's really exciting. Next month, it's going to be curated by this guy called Pixelord, who's this really amazing kind of like glitchy bass music kind of producer guy from Russia, and He's going to be putting together a bunch of jammers to do this live jam, and we're going to go through the whole unfolding cycle again. We're also working on some really exciting thing, which it's a really annoying thing. Can't say about it yet. I can't talk about it yet, but in the next few days, we've got some really exciting news.
That's great. There's always something like that. There's always you got to leave it with a sneaky the pre-announcement. It's the pre-announcement of the pre-announcement. I love it.
Yeah, the pre-tease.
The pre-tease.
The tease.
Love it. Well, keep an eye on the Endless social channels and head to the Endless website if you're curious on any of that stuff. And there's a link to the Endless Discord on that website, I think, too, isn't there? If you want to dive into the deep end of the community.
Yeah. So if you just head to Endless with 3 S's.fm, and everything's there. You can get the app, mobile app, desktop app, Discord community. As links to our support, we've got a support forum as well. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of resources there. But I definitely head to the Discord server, because that's where all the cool cats hang out. well, not cool in a kind of exclusive way, but like the nice cats.
It is a nice crew. It's a nice crew. Apologies to Hey Pixels, who has just turned up. You have missed the conversation, the event. Thanks for dropping in. Thank you to everybody who's been in the chat today and who's been watching. If you want to give it up for these guys, drop a couple of applause emojis and whatever other thank yous and stuff you want to pop into the chat for Tim and Allison. Yeah, really appreciate you guys doing this. And Tim, have a good day, sir. Thank you for getting up extra early.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Awesome. Yay. All right. Well, we'll be back on Twitch doing this all again in a few weeks' time. I think our next guests are Genesis Owusu and Nina Las Vegas. Two incredible Australian artists. So we're going to be talking all about how to build a team and how to work as an artist effectively in 2021. So it's going to be a pretty interesting chat. Come and watch that one, Allison. It'll be good.
I will come and watch that.
Cool. Okay. See you guys. Thanks again.
Cool. See you all soon. Take care.
See you all around.
Bye-bye.